This is an NAQT middle school history set. Specifically, it is called the Thumbs Up for History Middle School Set 1, Packet Number 1, provided by the NAQT National Academic Quiz Tournaments, and these are the toss-ups from that packet. Toss-up number 1. The Silent Sentinels were imprisoned in 1917 for trying to do this. Earlier, Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony campaigned for the right of women to do it. For 10 points, name this act which, in 1920, the 19th Amendment granted women the right to do. That would be voting, or the vote, or suffrage. Toss-up number 2. This man captured Vercingetorix in Gaul and sent troops across the Rubicon to start a civil war. Along with Crassus and Pompey, he formed the first triumvirate. For 10 points, a conspiracy led by Cassius and Brutus killed what Roman leader on the Ides of March? That person would be Caesar, Julius Caesar. Toss-up number 3. This man's works in the key of C minor include his Coriolan Overture, his Pathétique Piano Sonata, and an 1808 work that begins with 3 rapid Gs and an E flat, his 5th Symphony. For 10 points, name this German whose 9th Symphony ends with an Ode to Joy. And that German man would be Beethoven, Ludwig van Beethoven. Toss-up number 4. This president proposed a judicial procedures reform bill to add more Supreme Court justices, which was called his court packing plan. He created the Works Progress Administration and Civilian Conservation Corps as part of his New Deal. For 10 points, name this 4-term U.S. president. That would be Roosevelt. Because there are 2 Roosevelts, you would have had to say F. Roosevelt, at least the F for Franklin Roosevelt. You could have also said FDR or Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Franklin D. Roosevelt. Any answer that indicated that you knew that it was Roosevelt but not Theodore Roosevelt. Toss-up number 5. She was at Kenya's Treetops Hotel when she acquired her current position upon the death of her father, George VI. This wife of Prince Philip lives in Buckingham Palace and is the mother of Prince Charles. For 10 points, name this head of state, the reigning Queen of England. That would be Elizabeth II of the United Kingdom. I would have had to prompt on Elizabeth, because she's not Elizabeth I, but Elizabeth II. Toss-up number 6. This man may have landed at either Samana Cay or Watling Island, which he called San Salvador. This Genoese-born admiral of the ocean sea led a fleet that consisted of the Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria. For 10 points, name this explorer who sailed across the Atlantic in 1492. And that explorer would be Christopher Columbus. Toss-up number 7. Allegations of assaults on women led to a 1906 race riot in this city. It is the site of Ebenezer Baptist Church and a Martin Luther King museum. The nearby Battle of Peachtree Creek was part of Sherman's March to the Sea, which saw its burning. For 10 points, name this Georgia city. That would be Atlanta, Georgia. Toss-up number 8. This man worked with patients like Little Hans and Anna O. He wrote about defense mechanisms like projection and repression and proposed the division of the mind into the id, the ego, and the superego. For 10 points, name this Austrian founder of psychoanalysis. That would be Freud, Sigmund Freud. Toss-up number 9. In this modern-day nation, Robert Clive won the Battle of Plassey. Jawaharlal Nehru became the first prime minister of this country after it gained independence from Britain in 1947. For 10 points, wars against Pakistan were fought by what nation whose capital is New Delhi? That nation is India. Toss-up number 10. This god killed Typhon and became an eagle to kidnap his cupbearer Ganymede. One of his daughters was born from his forehead, and he imprisoned his father Cronus in Tartarus to assume power. For 10 points, name this father of Athena, a sky god, and king of Olympus. That god is Zeus. Toss-up number 11. This woman was canonized in 1920, nearly 500 years after she was burned at the stake for heresy. Charles VII was crowned king after this woman lifted the siege of Orléans. For 10 points, name this medieval peasant girl who, during the 100 Years' War, led French military forces. And that peasant girl is Joan of Arc. Toss-up number 12. This equation first appeared in the 1905 paper, quote, "Does the inertia of a body depend upon its energy content?" unquote. The fourth of its creators, quote, Annus Mirabilis papers. For 10 points, name this equation relating a body's energy to its mass and the speed of light, proposed by Albert Einstein. And that famous equation is E equals mc squared. Toss-up number 13. This man's report on manufactures was an industrial development plan using tariffs and subsidies. He feuded with Thomas Jefferson in the cabinet and died in a duel with Aaron Burr. For 10 points, name this first Treasury Secretary depicted on the $10 bill. That would be Alexander Hamilton. Toss-up number 14. This country exited World War I through the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. It fought several 18th century wars with Turkey and attacked Sweden in the Great Northern War. After a 1905 Japanese war, the ruling Romanov Tsars lost power in, for 10 points, what country that formed most of the USSR? And that would be Russia. Toss-up number 15. These characters first appeared in The Tower Treasure, in which Chet Morton's car was stolen. While tracking missing money, they get help from their father Fenton, a Bayport investigator. For 10 points, name this mystery-solving duo whose first names are Frank and Joe. And those would be the Hardy Boys. I could have also accepted Frank and Joe Hardy before I gave you those names. Toss-up number 16. This war, caused in part from impressment of U.S. sailors, ended 2 weeks before Andrew Jackson fought the Battle of New Orleans. Known as Mr. Madison's War, it was ended by the Treaty of Ghent. For 10 points, name this war against Great Britain named for an early 19th century year. That would be the War of 1812. Toss-up number 17. Clement Attlee replaced this man, who announced that an Iron Curtain had descended across Europe. He promised that we shall fight on the beaches in a June 1940 speech to the House of Commons. For 10 points, name this man who served as British Prime Minister during most of World War II. That man is Churchill, Winston Churchill. Toss-up number 18. This man was warned by Bull Exsurge Domine that he might face excommunication from Pope Leo X. Johann Tetzel's sale of indulgences angered this man, who taught theology at Wittenberg, where he posted his 95 Theses in 1517. For 10 points, name this leader of the Protestant Reformation. and that would be Martin Luther. Toss-up number 19. Gilbert Stuart's painting of this man was saved by Dolly Madison during the 1814 White House fire. Emmanuel Luz's work, used on a New Jersey state quarter, shows him standing on a boat. For 10 points, name this Revolutionary general who crossed the Delaware. That would be George Washington. I could have also accepted the Lansdowne portrait before I said man. That was very early in the question. That was the sixth word of the question was man. So if you got it before that, I could have accepted Lansdowne. Could have also accepted Washington crossing the Delaware, which was mentioned which was mentioned during the question, a painting that was mentioned during the question. So toss-up number 20. On this battle's first day, Richard Ewell failed to take Cemetery Hill. It resulted in George Meade's Army of the Potomac driving Robert E. Lee's Confederates into Maryland. For 10 points, name this 1863 Pennsylvania battle commemorated in an Abraham Lincoln address. That would be the Battle of Gettysburg. Toss-up number 21. In 2008, Nikolai Sajin was world champion in an activity combining chess with this sport. In 1867, the Marquess of Queensberry published rules for it, and its former champions include Oscar de la Hoya. For 10 points, name this sport in which two gloved participants fight in a ring. That would be boxing. It could have also accepted chess boxing. That was mentioned towards the beginning of the question. Toss-up number 22. One of these informs Zechariah he will have a child, and another talks to Mary Magdalene when she visits Jesus' tomb. Jacob wrestles with one, and in the Annunciation, one named Gabriel tells Mary of Jesus' birth. For 10 points, name these messengers of God, often shown with wings. Those would be angels. Toss-up 23. 5 P-36 Mohawks defended this location, which was struck by Kate torpedo bombers and Val dive bombers. The USS Arizona is a sunken memorial at this site in southern Oahu. For 10 points, December 7th, 1941 saw a Japanese surprise attack on what U.S. Navy base in Hawaii? That U.S. Navy base in Hawaii is Pearl Harbor. Toss-up number 24. This man arrives in Nuremberg by plane in the opening of the film Triumph of the Will. While in jail at Landsberg, he wrote about the policy of Lebensraum in Mein Kampf. Along with Eva Braun, he committed suicide in a bunker in 1945. For 10 points, name this Führer of Nazi Germany. That would be Adolf Hitler. Toss-up number 25. In 1921, Britain made Faisal king of this country. During the 1980s, it used poison gas on its Kurdish population, fought Iran, and invaded Kuwait during the rule of Saddam Hussein. For 10 points, in 2003, American troops looking for weapons of mass destruction invaded what country? That country is Iraq. Toss-up number 26. This term names a party whose 1888 presidential candidate was Clinton Fisk. It also names a historical era in which G-men operating under the Volstead Act shut down speakeasies. For 10 points, name this period that began in 1920 following passage of the 18th Amendment. That would be Prohibition. Toss-up number 27. Exaggerations in his 1596 work, The Discovery of Guyana, furthered the legend of El Dorado. In 1585, Elizabeth I knighted him before he went to Virginia and founded the lost colony of Roanoke. For 10 points, name this English explorer, the namesake of North Carolina's capital. That would be Raleigh, Sir Walter Raleigh. Toss-up number 28. This packet has 30 toss-ups. Third from the last. A few days before his birth, this Greek god killed a dragon named Python. He joined with his sister to kill the children of Niobe after she bragged about being superior to their mother Leto. For 10 points, name this brother of Artemis, the Greek god of light and music. And that Greek god is Apollo. Penultimate question. Characters in this novel include Mayella Ewell, whose father Bob breaks into Judge Taylor's home and attacks the children Jem and Scout before being killed by Boo Radley. For 10 points, name this novel that features a lawyer named Atticus Finch, a work by Harper Lee. And the answer there is To Kill a Mockingbird. And toss-up number 30. In 1676, this settlement was burned during Bacon's Rebellion. John Rolfe introduced West Indian tobacco to this place, named after the king who survived the gunpowder plot. For 10 points, John Smith led what colony founded in 1607, the first permanent English settlement in Virginia? And the answer there is Jamestown. Thanks for listening. This has been the NAQT Middle School History Set, available as a sample on the NAQT website. Hope you enjoyed.